Part 50. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 492. Rudolph has been resurrected 4 times tonight. The Phoenix Wizard's rebirth will become weaker after the 4th resurrection, and his physical functions and upper limit of star power will be reduced by a quarter. Therefore, Rudolph allowed Williams and the others to leave and kill Obaid. His purpose had been achieved. Rudolph didn't know if Williams and Bale had any powerful alchemical products or witchcraft on them. It was enough to install them just right, otherwise they would be easily beaten to death. The airships remaining at the scene, several of the city council's airships and Penna's airship, were slowly landing. Rudolph sat in the speaker's office in the airship and took out the fraud cards. Speaker Arden and director of the tribunal Matsu stood quietly opposite the desk, waiting for the furnace's instructions. After Obaid's death, the 2 men became extremely obedient. Arden was controlled by Rudolph's Gemini forbidden technique, split seed, and changed from a furnace of extreme fear to a furnace of extreme worship. Matsu had no intention of resisting at all. As a level 4 alchemist, he was no match for the furnace. It was better to surrender together with the speaker. The way Speaker Arden asked for everything from the furnace just now made Matsu admire Speaker Arden even more. Speaker Arden's flattering words touched the heart of the furnace. Speaker Arden's mind perfectly interpreted what it means to be flexible and flexible. Speaker Arden's acting skills shocked Matsu's jaw. Speaker Arden's control of the situation was superb. The final result is that the Forge promised that all hatred would end there and the Forge would no longer retaliate against the Alchemy Council of Fabreau City. After getting the news, Matsu almost shed tears. It was so difficult. Who can understand their pressure? Rudolph looked up at Matsu. Where did this card come from? Matsu was still immersed in his gratitude to Arden. He was startled when he was called by the furnace. He looked at the fraud statue on the card and said quickly, "Mr. Rudolph, I don't know the origin of this card. The evil god of fraud is the most mysterious. There are only statues of evil god of fraud in the temple in Fabreau City, and there are no priests. I don't know when Ivy betrayed the parliament and believed in the evil religion." Rudolph nodded. He felt that Matsu had not deceived him. "You come and input the power of the apostle into the card." Rudolph didn't dare to try anything related to the evil god, it was too dangerous. Not only Rudolph thought so, but Matsu also thought so. The furnace feels dangerous, doesn't Matsu feel dangerous? This. Rudolph raised his head and glanced at Matsu, who quickly reached out and took the fraud card. Why? Who asked the Alchemy Council and the Forge to reach an equal cooperation agreement? They are equals. In this agreement, the furnace's orders, regardless of size, will all be executed equally according to the highest level. This is too equal. As for the demands of the Alchemy Council, it was not mentioned in the agreement. After Matsu's alchemical power entered the cheating card, the snapping turtle on the cheating card suddenly moved. He saw Matsu, the alchemist who inspired him, and also saw Arden beside Matsu. The moment he saw Arden, the snapping turtle on the deception card was stunned. At this moment, he was more sure that the identity of the furnace was omniscience. Although Arden seems to be a normal person, Arden's mental state is extremely abnormal. Arden's body contains another soul, which is the legendary Gemini forbidden technique, a forbidden technique created by Idas, a level 9 wizard and the Zodiac twin wizard. This forbidden technique is so hidden that almost no one can see it except for beings at the level of evil gods. The evil god of fraud is able to quickly identify this forbidden technique that is very powerful in terms of fraud because he has some authority over deception. During the years when the twin wizard Idas was active, Idas used his forbidden magic to control many big figures, including kings and even level 8 priests. Under his control, the situation in the northern continent changed drastically, and Idas almost achieved immortality. Later, with the cooperation of the Knight Emperor Mogwen VI and the gods, Ida's evil plan was stopped. Later, Idas escaped. Without immortality, he would definitely die somewhere in the continent. Snapping Turtle couldn't help but glance at the furnace. Quanzi was now a wizard, and the wizard's forbidden skills were no secret to Quanzi. The great omniscience is simply too powerful. If a level 5 wizard who has mastered 3 forbidden arts had not seen it with his own eyes, he would not believe it and would definitely think it was an extremely clumsy lie. Speaker Yadin, Director Matsu, please go out first. After Mizu left, Shikard couldn't wait to say. Great Omniscient, I watched your entire battle through the vision of level 4 High Priest Jessica. Many great men in history became extremely strong-willed after experiencing the death of their lovers or friends. I thought you wanted to use the death of the identity of the furnace to inspire the fighting spirit of the Child of Destiny. It is impossible for omniscience to die. What dies is also a certain identity or a clone of omniscience. Rudolph looked normal, but in his heart he felt that what the card said was too much. Is it possible that friends offer sacrifices to heaven, and the power of an apostle is boundless is also popular in this world? It was impossible for Rudolph to sacrifice himself on his own initiative. As a friend, do your best when helping Cooper and be gentle when cheating him. This is the limit of what Rudolph can do. How can he sacrifice himself to let Cooper progress? Later I learned that, great omniscience, you just wanted to remove some obstacles for the growth of the Child of Destiny. The power of the Orb Province is too strong for the Child of Destiny at this stage. After this battle, the Parliament has compromised and will not pose much threat to the Child of Destiny. Rudolph did not want to dwell on this matter, he said. The Child of Destiny, Cooper, will try to fight against the evil temple in Fabreau City. What help can you provide about this matter? The snapping turtle on the card was stunned and did not answer immediately. The power level of the evil god's divine power was very high, so Rudolph heard the mumbling again. Fight, I fight myself. Bait, this is a necessary investment. After a slight hesitation, the snapping turtle on the card said. Great omniscience, you know that each temple is actually an altar. As long as enough sacrifices are offered, we can communicate with the 7 gods. If the Child of Destiny wants to take a simple path, then the sacrifices in the temple of the gods can be destroyed, and the priests will not be able to communicate with the gods. If the Child of Destiny wants to experience it, the highest level priest in the temple of the gods is the level 5 Pain Priest Panur. You can give Panur step by step, let him communicate with the Lord of Redemption, and find an opportunity for the Child of Destiny to experience the feeling of facing pain directly. Rudolph nodded and said, I know. Forget about the experience, it's not necessary. Rudolph is now playing the role of omniscience, so he can't ask about what happened in the past, because as long as it has happened, omniscience should know it. He can only ask about things that haven't happened yet, not the present or the past, but only the future. The alligator snapper saw that Rudolph looked very calm, and he felt a little uneasy. Could it be because the omniscient thought that his contribution was too small? Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 493. The alchemical power that Matsu left on the fraudulent cards dissipated, and the cards turned back into ordinary cards, slowly falling on the desk and being put away by Rudolph. Rudolph checked again. Without the power of the apostle, this was just an ordinary item. As an item blessed by the evil god, maybe it also has some secret doors that Rudolph doesn't know about. Before Cooper's identity is exposed, Rudolph will keep the playing cards and learn something about him at this level from the evil deception behind the playing cards. Hard to get news. Mizu outside the door suddenly heard some other sounds, and a pleasant female voice sounded in Mizu's heart. Mizu, the furnace's next target is the temple of the gods. The gods have had a premonition that someone is plotting against the temple. The goddess of wisdom made the furnace believe her lies, and the other 6 gods will take action to wipe out the furnace. Go to High Priest Jessica, she will cooperate with you to complete your plan. After erasing the furnace, the cult of the gods will return you a Fabreau city without a furnace, and will also help you become the speaker of the Fabreau City Council. Mizu's eyes flashed and he suddenly became excited. He saw the fraud card that Forging Furnace took out. The name of evil god Fraud is the goddess of wisdom. How could Furnace be so arrogant as to contact evil god Fraud without permission? Looking at the back of Speaker Arden, Matsu was heartbroken. The Forge just asked him to input the power of the Apostle into the fraud card, but he did not ask Speaker Arden to do so. This shows that even if he surrenders, the Speaker is more valuable than him, the Director of the Judicial Office. Mizu felt that the ability of the evil god cult was much more complex and subtle than that of the Council, and it could directly gain the attention of the evil god. No matter how powerful the furnace was, could it be more powerful than the evil god? He did not completely reject the voice that appeared in his heart, but was ready to try to get in touch with the insect high priest Jessica. When the airship landed, Rudolph walked down the gangway and saw Pina, the director of the equipment department, running over. "Mr. Pina, we..." Pina was even more anxious than Rudolph, and he immediately interrupted, "Mr. Furnace. I will definitely help you maintain the Moon Eye Obsidian. That gun is very complicated and troublesome to maintain." Seeing Pina's anxious look, Rudolph understood that he didn't want others to know that Pina would help Rudolph develop an anti-signal tower array. The emergence of the anti-signal tower formation means betrayal of the alchemist, and Pina is unwilling to bear this crime. "If you don't want to, just don't think about it, you can just give it to Rudolph in private. Then please, Mr. Pina, I hope you can write a maintenance manual. When you return to the trial hall, I can also maintain it myself. Don't be so polite, just order me directly." Pina still prefers the rough furnace. The furnace forces him to do things and makes him feel less guilty. The lesser of two evils, agreeing to maintain the Moon Eye Obsidian is better than agreeing to develop an anti-signal tower array, which would be easier for the council to accept. Rudolph also saw several people walking in the distance, Destiny's child Cooper, Yvonne, and his student Blanca. Cooper did nothing tonight and became the son of Destiny certified by evil god's Fraud. I wonder if his future destiny will be worthy of this title. Blanca's appearance surprised Rudolph. She became the surprise soldier tonight. She shot Rudolph at the critical moment, allowing Rudolph to gain valuable star power from the poison bomb. Rudolph said, "Our new friend Speaker Arden will go to the Parliament building as soon as possible to negotiate with those big shots. If there are no accidents, we will no longer have to hide in the future and can appear openly in Lehman Town and Fabreau City." Seeing Rudolph's relaxed look, everyone else also breathed a sigh of relief. Cooper can stay in the cemetery without disguise. But why was Rudolph looking at him strangely? Cooper felt that he seemed to have suffered a loss somewhere, but he couldn't find the place where he suffered the loss. Is it the giant corpse that was blown up and not humanoid? It can also be used to reattach the blown limbs with corpse stitching. It is still useful to sew up the corpse of a level 5 apostle. Is it the loss of many level 4 and level 3 apostle corpses? It's not like that. These corpses can all be replaced. Cooper couldn't figure out where he was at a disadvantage, so he simply couldn't think about anything else. Yvonne no longer has to hide in the Wolf King's tribe, but can live in the town of Lehman and the city of Fabreau, which makes her very happy. The living conditions of the Wolf King tribe are hugely different from those in the city. Yvonne doesn't like either the sanitary conditions or the food. As for Blanca, she quickly asked at this time, "Teacher, our sheriff is missing. Someone pretended to be Sheriff Kelida." "I understand, let's go find Kelida right now," Rudolph said. "Blanca, take me to find some biological credentials of Kelida, preferably her hair or fingerprints." After leaving the barn and entering the town of Lehman, I found many refugees hiding behind windows, observing a few people walking quickly on the road. Yvonne has the best image, Blanca is in a police uniform, Rodolfo is in a witch hunter robe, and only Cooper is hooded and faceless. Cooper, you alone have made us all distrustful. Rudolph, don't you think they are afraid of you? What you did just now was quite destructive. Rudolph looked around, and sure enough, many people quickly avoided the windows after seeing Rudolph's gaze. You are right. It seems that someone has good eyesight and can see what is happening in the barn from such a distance. Of course, you can do whatever you want at high altitude, and many people can see it clearly. After arriving at the police station building, Rudolph saw the police station with one floor blown up. Damn it, why do you think the witch hunters from the Court of Justice want to resist? They destroyed the whole building and even my dormitory. The sheriff's dormitory was blown up. I'll go see if there are any biological evidence in the sheriff's office. Hair is always indispensable in a woman's room, and Blanca quickly found a few hairs. Teacher, do you think these hairs belong to the sheriff or the fake one? It's okay. If it's Kelita's, then find Kelita. If it's Jessica's, then find Jessica. It takes a while for the metamorphosis pupa to change a person. If you're fast, you can catch up. After getting the hair, Rudolph found a spacious place for divination. After drawing the astrolabe for the word spirit, Rudolph placed the hair on the astrolabe. He looked up at the starry sky. The positions of the planets in the starry sky showed that the owner of the hair was located at the point where the nadir of Mars passed, and the astrolabe pointed to the basement of the police station. The appearance of the Mars nadir line means that the object of divination is now in a very weak state, which should be Kelita. They found Kelita in the dark room in the basement of the police station. Kelita was in good condition, just unconscious. After checking her body, she was not in danger of life and had not suffered irreversible damage. Jessica was a smart person and knew to leave a way out when doing things. Rudolph suddenly turned his head and looked across the street, where there was another person hiding. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 494. Church, the Elba, was spotted by Rudolph where he was hiding and hurried out. He held the Wolf King's kite shield and faced the people at the door of the police station. Church had been carefully observing the situation outside the town and recognized the person standing in the middle as the wizard who had penetrated the group of parliamentary airships. Church, it's me, Rupert. Church was startled when he heard this voice. You can also call me Rudolph. Church was even more surprised. It turned out that Mr. Rupert was Rudolph the Forge. This was a secret that the Golden Anchor Castle did not tell him. But think about it, a wizard who can produce a level 5 magic weapon will certainly not be an unknown person. It all makes sense if Mr. Rupert is the melting pot. Church handed the Wolf King kite shield to Rudolph and was very sad to see the witchcraft weapon disappear. This witchcraft can greatly enhance the knight's combat effectiveness. Unfortunately, Chechi is not qualified to hold this powerful witchcraft. Rudolph looked at Church and said with some surprise, Churchy, have you been promoted to a level 4 knight? Yes, after destroying the signal tower and the subsequent battle against the witch hunters, I was lucky enough to be promoted and became a level 4 knight. The promotion to knight is really enviable. It is simple and easy to operate. Congratulations, Church. I hope you can become Count Palu's Falcon attendant in the future and manage the intelligence system of Count Golden Anchor. Don't you dare, Church nodded quickly, it's not that easy to be a Falcon Squire. I'll just complete the tasks assigned to me by the Earl and I won't be too troublesome. Just kidding, the death of Viscount Paulus, the previous Falcon attendant, was inseparable from the furnace. He didn't want to wade into this muddy water now. The battle between Master Caleb and Master Kedrick had already heated up. The furnace in front of him and Master Kedrick has many connections, and it would be unwise to get involved now. Mr. Rudolph, I will send my men to report what happened here back to the Kingdom of Elba. You have really helped us a lot. Rudolph wanted to say that he didn't mean to help either. Since the Earl of Golden Anchor Castle insists on thinking so, there is nothing he can do. The life of a county council speaker should be able to slow down some preparations for war in the Carolingian kingdom. Several airships took off in the suburbs, and Arden led the city council back to Fabreau City to report the results of their negotiations to Williams and others. It was dawn when Arden's airship returned to Fabreau City. The sky was slightly brighter, and Arden saw that every room in the Parliament building was lit up. Even the lights in the council hall were on, and I don't know who had to crowd in the council hall. The small apron of the Parliament was full of airships, and 2 airships temporarily took off to make space for Arden's airship. Arden stepped off the airship and saw Deputy Speaker Williams' secretary waiting for him. "Speaker Arden, Deputy Speaker of the province, please come over." Arden nodded and followed the secretary to see Williams. All the way into the Parliament building, Arden was a little surprised that Williams did not occupy his office, but stayed in the conference room next to the Speaker's office. It seemed that Williams respected Arden tonight. After entering the conference room, Arden saw that Major General Bale and Colonel Guyton were also here. "Please take a seat, Speaker Arden." Williams sat at the head of the conference table, Bale and Guyton sat on one side, and Arden sat on the other. In fact, the people who are qualified to enter this conference room include Obaid and Yevgeny, but unfortunately they are both dead. Williams observed Arden's expression and saw that Arden's expression was as normal, and he was no longer panicked. "Speaker Arden, you have worked hard." "No hard work, it's all for the Alchemy Council." "Regarding the negotiations with the furnace, what results have you achieved?" Williams was very anxious and asked about the results of the negotiations immediately. Arden said, "The Forge promised not to attack the Alchemy Council again, but he has conditions." "What conditions?" Williams felt that as long as he could temporarily get rid of the threat of the furnace, the conditions would be easy to negotiate. Arden said, "Deputy Speaker Williams, the conditions of the furnace mainly revolve around the late Deputy Speaker Mr. Claude. I wonder if you know Claude's deeds." Claude, Williams had no impression of this name. The Deputy Speaker of a remote city was too far away from the Deputy Speaker of the Provincial Assembly. Williams had never heard of this name. Arden turned to Guyton. "Colonel Guyton, you have been staying in Fabreau City. Can you introduce Claude?" Guyton had a headache. This matter was not up to him to decide. He was prepared to describe Claude objectively. Deputy Speaker Williams, Claude was the former chief of the Lehman Township Police Department, and later became the deputy chief and police chief of the Fabreau City Police Department. Finally, under the promotion of the late Deputy Speaker Abel, he served as the judicial director. Deputy Speaker of the City of Bro. Speaker Obaid designated Fabreau City as a pilot city to develop the wilderness, and the late Speaker Quint implemented the reforms. Speaker Quint's method was quite extreme. He signed an agreement with the Red Wolf King, asking the Red Wolf King to create a wave of wolves, and then applied to the military to station the Constitutional Army, asking me to help control the situation and prevent it from getting out of control. He also signed an agreement with the vampire Rievno family to create a night of blood mist, turning most of the residents of Fabreau City into blood servant miners. The Revenot family manages the newly discovered Ruhr mining area, and the Red Wolf King tribe is responsible for the security and mineral transportation around the Ruhr mining area. In this series of operations, the Fabreau City Council uses extremely efficient means and extremely labor-saving management investment. Completed the development of the Ruhr mining area. However, Claude did not agree with this concept and did not approve of this approach. Claude's men, or Claude's friends, the Forge, took action on the night of blood mist and saved the people in Dordo district. This caused a large gap among the miners in the Ruhr mining area, so Quint prepared to create a second night of blood mist in the Dordo area. With the help of Claude, Forge took action and killed Chancellor Quint. After the death of Speaker Quint, Abel became the new speaker. Abel went to the county town to report on his work. After meeting Speaker Obaid, he accepted Speaker Obaid's ideas and continued Quint's unfinished business. Speaker Abel led the Dordo district's sacrificial night, and gave some of the people in Dordo district to the evil god cult, and some of them were made into blood servant miners. Together with the Forge, Claude took a violent act of resistance on the night of the sacrifice. In the end, Abel won, and Abel killed Claude himself. From then on, the Forge went completely dark, and the Alchemy Council of Fabreau City was regarded as an enemy. Furnace traveled to the southern continent, where he was promoted and became a level 5 wizard. After the Forge came back, he took revenge on the Alchemy Council and avenged Claude. The Forge killed Speaker Abel and also killed Deputy Speaker Jem. Later, Speaker Obaid and Deputy Director of the Trial Hall Yevgeny came to Fabreau City to start a witch hunt. After hearing about Claude's deeds, Williams asked, "So, what is the demand of the furnace? If Claude is dead, can he be resurrected?" Arden shook his head and said, "The Crucible's request is to restore Deputy Speaker Claude's reputation, not to let Claude die in an unknown manner, and to posthumously award Claude a hero of Fabreau City." Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 495. Williams looked very serious, and this request was difficult for him to handle. After pondering for a long time, Williams said, "Restoring Claude's reputation is nothing in itself. But judging from Colonel Guyton's description just now, if Claude is a hero, then who is the villain and who is the devil? To restore Claude's reputation, we must explain why Claude died and why his death was meaningful, which means that Obaid's secret plans may be exposed. The clues of the late Speaker Quint's cooperation with werewolves, vampires, and evil gods will all be exposed to everyone. If Claude is the hero, then Obaid, Quint, Abel and others will become the murderers. Because of the requirements of the furnace, the county president and city president are defined as criminals who harm citizens. This is absolutely impossible, and it will deal a huge blow to the justice of the Alchemy Council's governance. Me and the councillors of Fabreau City are extremely hopeful that the furnace matter will end here." Arden stared at Williams. "You just said, because of the requirements of the furnace, the county president is defined as a criminal, which I disagree with. Is it possible that the county speaker and former speakers did commit heinous crimes in Fabreau City, so they are defined as criminals?" Williams looked at Arden with some disbelief. "Speaker Arden, in order to get rid of the threat of the furnace, have you lost even your basic judgment? If the requirements of the Forge are followed, then it is not a question of who is the hero and who is the criminal, but a question of the legitimacy of the Alchemy Council." At this time, Arden suppressed his anger and said in a deep voice, "Mr. Williams, are so many citizens of Fabreau City being made into blood servants and so many citizens being given to the evil god? Is this the source of the legitimacy and justice of our governance? To this day, no one has taken this problem seriously." Williams looked at Arden as if he were looking at a frightened fool. "Speaker Arden, Obaid did nothing wrong. He greatly shortened the time we had to develop the wilderness and gave us time to prepare for war. We will soon start a war against the Elba royal family, and even against Gallo-Lin royal war. Obaid's plan is a genius plan. All the blame should be borne by the werewolves, vampires, and evil priests. The most we can bear is a misdemeanor of incompetence. The heresy is too powerful, too bloody, and too unscrupulous, so ordinary people should obey the orders of our alchemists." Arden shook his head. "I will convey your attitude to the furnace verbatim, Deputy Speaker Williams. I wish you good luck after I die." Williams leaned back uneasily. The justice of the Alchemy Council was important, but his life was equally important. There is nothing he can do against Arden. Arden is right. If the furnace does not stop, Arden will be killed soon. At this time, no matter what reason, Arden cannot be persuaded. You cannot persuade a man who is bound to die. Williams turned to Major General Bale and asked, Major General Bale, do you have any suggestions? Bale sighed. He didn't want to get involved in these local affairs. Deputy Speaker Williams, I can only stress that the Constitutional Army's tactics will not change. In the battle plan drawn up by the General Staff, once a war breaks out, we will outflank and enter the Kingdom of Elba from the flank. This is also the reason why we came to the direction of Fabreau City. It is relatively remote and will not encounter the main force of the Royal Army of Elba. I think it is best to deal with the rear affairs before the war begins. Whether it is witch hunting or compromise, it should be dealt with as soon as possible. Although Bale provided the option of witch hunting, he preferred to compromise. Witch hunting is a way to let the Burgundy Region Inquisition Hall come to Fabreau City to hunt witches. The furnace should not be the opponent of the Region Inquisition Hall. But the problem now is that Burgundy is too far away from here. When the people from the Regional Trial Hall come here, the furnace is likely to be far away from other places like last time. When the furnace comes back again, he may become a level 6 wizard. The furnace is the Phoenix Wizard of the South. It will be difficult for him to die. There will be endless troubles by then. This is bound to become a war of attrition, and maybe the Crucible won't be able to hunt for the next 2 or 3 years. This is very troublesome. Our military cannot wait for 2 or 3 months, let alone 2 or 3 years. The furnace can fail countless times and he can be resurrected. Once the war breaks out and there is a problem with our logistics line, even if it is only delayed for half a month, the front line will suffer huge losses. What Bale said is true. As a military representative, he very much hopes that the local council can take some responsibilities and not increase accidents at this time. Deputy Speaker Williams, the Ruhr mining area has been developed, and the efforts of Speaker Obaid and others have been rewarded. The problem now is not to let accidents affect the Parliament's next plans. After hearing Bale's statement, Williams understood that compromise was inevitable. Is it possible that we can give Claude's family generous compensation and let those things go away? Arden said, Deputy Speaker Claude has no family and is alone. Is it possible that we can give Furnace generous compensation so that he will stop worrying about these things? The Furnace is a murderer, and he has a lot of level 5 relics in his hands. I think the Furnace selling a few level 5 witchcraft can make him richer than the bank in Fabreau City. Williams didn't care about Arden's aggressiveness and disrespect. After thinking deeply, he said, well, I hope we can each take a step back. The Parliament restored Claude's reputation and endorsed Claude's actions. He was killed by Abel for the sake of the residents of Fabreau. However, parliamentary justice also needs to be considered. According to previous practice, the bad guys can only go to the city level and let Quint and Abel take the blame. Obaid is the county chairman. He holds a high position and his credibility cannot be tarnished. You tell the Furnace my conditions and see if the Furnace can agree. Arden shook his head, Mr. Williams, I don't think the Furnace would agree. After all. What exactly? The Forge asked me to send you a message, Arden said. After all, you and Obaid are both level 6 alchemists. To him, there is not much difference. William's pupils narrowed and he instantly understood what Arden meant. If the terms of the Furnace are not agreed to, the Furnace's revenge will not stop. Those who support Obaid in the provincial council will also be the target of the melting pot, and Williams, who came to Fabreau City to support Obaid's policies, is obviously the first choice for the melting pot to continue revenge. Williams hesitated and hesitated, then finally sighed. Regardless of whether the Regional Inquisition Hall can hunt witches, he may be killed by the Forge as a typical example like Obaid. Speaker Arden, go and restore the Furnace. I agree to his conditions, and the Parliament will restore Claude's reputation. After careful consideration of the specific expression, it can be said that Obaid was bewitched by Quint and Abel and made a big mistake. Their death was an apology to the citizens of Fabro City. The Forge has won, and the Forge must keep its promise and not retaliate against the Alchemy Council. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 496. Mizzou, the director of the trial office, came to Leemantown with the agreement and tomorrow's Fabro City Daily. Fabro City Daily will use all pages tomorrow to introduce the life of the late Vice President Claude, focusing on the fact that Vice President Claude was brutally killed by the criminal Abel. Rudolph looked at the newspaper and read every report in the newspaper carefully. The beginning and end of the Wolf Tide, the truth of the Blood Fog Night, the ending of the Sacrificial Night, the many conspiracies of Quint, the early executor, the subsequent behavior of Abel, the successor, and how Obed, the murderer behind the scenes, promoted these things. After confirming that it was roughly in line with the facts, Rudolph said, "Very good, Director Mizzou, I am basically satisfied with your attitude." After seeing Mizzou off, Rudolph met Ivan, Kelita, and others at the door. "Kelita, how are you recovering now?" "Very well, I lost a lot of weight in the basement. I don't know if this is a good thing." After seeing Rudolph, Kelita felt much more relaxed. She no longer had to live here alone. She could find Rudolph if she had any problems in the future. Rudolph could solve everything. The group took white roses and went to the cemetery outside Leemantown. Rudolph came to a tombstone with baby's name on it. This old police officer who was thinking about retirement died in the Wolf Tide a year before his retirement. If he hadn't been promoted and hadn't become the sheriff of Leemantown after Claude left, he wouldn't have had to face the terrible Wolf Tide. Putting the white rose in front of the tombstone, Rudolph stared at it silently. Old Baby was very good to Rudolph. At that time, Old Baby, who was in charge of police supplies, turned a blind eye to Rudolph's extra things. He was a good old man. In the words of Old Baby, the little things that Rudolph took away were not even the fraction of the fractions taken by the congressman. Those big guys didn't care and kept watching the police officers take 2 more packs of paper and 2 more packs of bullets every day, which was really annoying. Cooper also wanted to pay tribute to Old Gray, who also died in the Wolf Tide. Old Gray is now in the corpse monument. Cooper found a vacant land far away. After setting the corpse monument on the ground, he also presented a white rose to Old Gray. "Let's go, we'll go to Fabro City." The airship of the judiciary was waiting outside the town. Rudolph and others got on the airship and went to Fabro City. The current citizen composition of Fabro City is very unique, with many blood servants, so the Fabro City Daily will be distributed after 12 o'clock in the middle of the night. A newsboy took a thick stack of newspapers distributed to him and was a little surprised why there were so many newspapers today. On both sides of the back seat of the bicycle, his newspaper bag was hung. When putting the newspaper in, the newsboy occasionally glanced at the front page of the newspaper. This glance made the newsboy stunned. Shocking. The truth of the bloody night. Below the title, there are photos of 3 people, Abade, the speaker of Vichy County, and Quint and Abel, the 2 speakers of Fabro City. The photos of these 3 people are stamped with the blood-red word criminal. This report describes in detail how Quint was so crazy that he wanted to use the Ruhr mining area to increase his political capital. Together with Abel, he persuaded Abade to agree to his plan, and then colluded with werewolves and vampires to create waves and bloody nights, sending countless miners to the Ruhr mining area. Those miners are residents of most of Fabro City. The newsboy touched the fangs in his mouth. They were the fangs of the blood servants. It was a little unbelievable. In other words, on the bloody night, it was not the Ravno family attacking the Alchemy Council, but the Alchemy Council colluding with the Ravno family. There have been rumors for a long time that the Ravno family could not be the opponent of the Alchemy Council. There must be a conspiracy. At that time, someone published an article in the newspaper to refute this message, saying that how could a city council give half of the citizens to the Blood Clan? This is too absurd and there is no possibility. The newsboy quickly flipped through the other pages of the newspaper. The red pupils of the blood servant gave him better night vision, allowing him to read the newspaper under the dim street lights. After reading it, the newsboy was stagnant in the same place, not even knowing that the bicycle had fallen over, just staring blankly in the direction of his home. People died in his family because of the blood fog night and the subsequent disasters. Now tell him that all this was the crime committed by several speakers. Then what are they? Just consumables in quinsize? Just a source of miners in the mining area? He picked up the bicycle and rode towards the block where his home was. The speed was very fast and almost hit someone, but he didn't care about anything. Ordinary people on the road are stupid and pitiful moles. Unless the parliament tells them, they will not know any news. Seeing the newspaper boy running fast, they all gave him crazy looks. It was not until half an hour later that the newspaper was handed to them and they saw the content of the newspaper that they knew what had happened and the truth. This fact was so cruel that they thought the newspaper in their hands was a prank. After seeing the same content in other people's newspapers, people realized that it was really the speakers who harmed them and killed their families. The newspaper boy rode to his door like crazy, threw his bicycle hard, and rushed to his home with the newspaper. After passing through the narrow stairs and going up to the third floor, the newspaper boy saw his mother, who had cried blind. "Mom! Let my brother come back. Don't let my brother stay in the mining area anymore." It was a bloody night created by the parliament. Unfortunately, his mother couldn't see the newspaper. She just raised her head and faced the direction of her youngest son. She didn't react to what her youngest son said. After the newspaper boy explained to his mother what was said in the newspaper, the mother and son cried bitterly in the house. Next to the bicycle downstairs, a group of people rushed to the bicycle like crazy, trying to get the newspaper from the newspaper bag to find out if what others said was true. A group of people held the broken newspapers and looked at the pieces of articles in the newspapers. Some cried bitterly, and some were so angry that they didn't know what to do. Countless people poured into the streets and rushed to the city council. Above the city council, all the council members were already sitting on the airship. They had a premonition that riots might happen tonight, so they hid early. Williams and Arden said, "Chairman Arden, the city of Fabreau is now depending on you." Bali said, "Chairman Arden, I hope the riots can be quelled as soon as possible, and the railway must be protected, which is the key to the transportation of materials in the future." Arden just nodded and watched the two people get on the transfer boat, return to their own airship, and leave the city of Fabreau. Below the airship, the city council building was already in flames. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 497. Burn it, burn it. After burning it, they will vent their anger. The Parliament building is the office building of the high-ranking parliamentarians. The blood servant miners who just came in just wanted to find someone to explain themselves. After seeing that the entire building was empty and no one came out to answer, the blood servants picked up everything at hand and started smashing the office building. Later, the blood servants began to set fire to every room. A fire broke out on the Parliament building, and Arden said on the airship, "Don't burn people to death. I hope they can master the correct order of burning buildings. Burning from top to bottom is the safest method, because there are many blood servants inside, and burning from bottom to top will burn people to death." The blood servants outside the building became even more excited when they saw the flames burning. It's a pity that they have been blood servants for too short a time, and they haven't promoted many vampires yet, so they can't attack the airships in the sky. This building was blasted by a furnace once, and the council had planned to rebuild it. After tonight, it happened to be rebuilt. On the airship, The congressman looked at Speaker Arden in front of them and felt that the speaker handled the matter well. Since you have compromised to the furnace, you must compromise to the end, publish all the previous secret plans, and let two dead men, Quint and Abel, take the blame, so that the furnace will have no excuse to continue to take revenge. Speaker Arden, should we take some action tonight to protect important facilities such as railways and freight stations? The Provincial Council has further lowered its requirements for the Fabreau City Alchemy Council. As long as they maintain production order, the restoration of public security, taxation, etc. can be delayed. Arden has little interest in protecting those production facilities. What do they burn something compared to what the citizens suffer? Arden stood next to the railing with a sad face. Others see this indulgence as part of a compromise with the crucible, a way for raging grievances to be released. This chaotic night ended when the sun rose. Driven by the sun, the angry blood servants returned to their sealed houses. At this time, many members felt that Quint's choice was so wise and the poor blood servants were so easy to deal with. As long as the sun came out, the blood servants had to hide, which would not affect the operation of the parliament during the day at all. During the day, Fabreau City ushered in a brief period of peace, and the printing factory was still printing tomorrow's daily newspapers. After 12 midnight, the new daily newspaper was distributed again. The headlines this time are about the future. Beware of greed, Act of Parliament, March 10th. Every year, Blood Fog Night, will be the Blood Fog Day in Fabreau City. The miners in the Ruhr mining area asked for leave or forced their way back to Fabreau City, hoping to get an explanation. The demonstrations and riots reached their peak the next night, with half of Fabreau City filled with angry people holding banners. The riots tended to expand and get out of control, and the elected members of each district showed up one after another and had to appear in front of the people. They promised the people that they would continue to submit bills in Parliament that would benefit the blood servant miners. Drawing votes requires exposure and speeches, which are very expensive. Therefore, elections are an exclusive game for the rich, and high election expenses exclude ordinary people. Ordinary people with the right to vote can only choose one to represent themselves between the very rich and the richer. This is the best outcome they can get. The blood servant miners standing in the audience looked angrily at their elected congressman, demanding that they find the culprit. The congressman had to explain that the culprits could not be found because they were all killed by the furnace, and the furnace alone contributed to several changes in the parliament. After hearing that the speakers in the newspaper were all dead, the anger of the blood servant miners decreased a bit. On the third day, another big news broke out on the front page of the daily newspaper: huge compensation. The parliament passed the compensation bill, which will compensate all Fabreau residents. For 3 consecutive mornings, the council hall would first clean up the mess caused by the rioters, and then hold meetings in the increasingly dilapidated council hall. It was not until the compensation bill was passed that the blood servant miners stopped frantically destroying the parliament and began to wait for compensation from the parliament. Arden also gained popular support and the support of MPs through a brief but thorough correction. The current ending is the best ending. Riots were inevitable, but they ended quickly and had minimal impact on the members' property. After the blood servant miners vented their anger, they had to accept their fate as blood servants. Becoming an apostle is irreversible, and the physical structure of the blood servants has undergone essential changes. As for compensation, the amount of the compensation bill is quite high. The parliament will use 10% of the annual profits of the Ruhr mining area to compensate the residents of Fabreau. This compensation will last for 30 years. Because of Arden's outstanding performance during this period, his ability to govern has been recognized by most people, and Arden always explained on different occasions that only a sincere admission of mistakes and generous compensation can prevent Fabreau City from collapsing. The only way out. On the morning of the 4th day, Rudolph took 3 newspapers to the South City Cemetery. The publicity of the Fabreau City Journal these days has made Claude's image a bit taller. When Rudolph entered the cemetery, he found that Claude's tombstone was filled with white roses. Putting down his white rose, Rudolph looked at Claude's small tombstone in the distance from a dozen meters away. "Claude, you will be avenged as much as you can." After traveling to another world, Rudolph woke up in the hospital. The first thing he saw when he woke up was Claude. In the witch hunt against the bloody wizard Siren, the original Rudolph died and the new Rudolph was born. His understanding of this other world began with Claude's guilty consolation. Because Claude felt guilty, he was very tolerant of Rudolph at the time, allowing Rudolph to adapt to this place quickly. Later, Rudolph unexpectedly became a wizard. Claude may have seen it a long time ago, but he didn't point it out. There was a witch hunter team stationed in Lehman Town. Rudolph didn't feel the existence of the witch hunter team at all. Maybe Claude had handled some of Rudolph's hands and feet at that time. Now thinking about it, Rudolph is very fortunate to have met Claude. Claude helped him so much, and more importantly, Claude's values made Rudolph feel familiar. If Rudolph had come here instead of following Claude, but had faced those hundreds-year-old vampires, those hungry man-eating werewolves, the priests who constantly plotted sacrifices, and the noble lords who were high above him, God knows what kind of person Rudolph would become after staying here for a few years. Fortunately, Rudolph met Claude. Claude is a gentle man, perhaps, this is why he can always capture the hearts of women. In this urban jungle, many people are beasts in human skin, and Claude's gentleness makes him so special. After Rudolph left the cemetery, he found that Mizu, the director of the Judgment Bureau, was staring at him. "Mr. Rudolph, the priest Panner of the evil god cult wants to meet you." Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 498. Painful priest Panner wants to see me. Looking at Mizu, Rudolph was a little confused. It would be fine if he didn't go to trouble the evil temple, but the people from the evil temple actually came to him first. Painful priest Panner is not afraid of pain, but is he not afraid of death? With Rudolph's current reputation, someone actually wants to come and see him? On the night of the sacrifice, the evil god looked at the Dordo district with pain, and turned nearly one-third of the people in the Dordo district into servants of pain. Rudolph will never forget this matter, nor will he let it go. The temple has been established, and it is very dangerous to cause trouble to the evil god cult, which is more dangerous than challenging the airship fleet of the Alchemy Council. Once the evil god's attention is attracted, Rudolph, a level 5 apostle, may be killed before he even resists. He had provoked several level 6 priests in the southern continent before, because they were all far away from the parish and the temple. If it was next to the temple of a certain level 6 priest, Rudolph would not dare to be presumptuous even if he was given 100 lives. The level difference is too big, and Rudolph will not know how he died. Each evil god has found a very deceptive name for himself, such as the Lord of Holy Light, the Goddess of Harvest, the God of Craftsmen, etc., but they have never given up their true names. The true names of evil gods, such as White Devil, Worm Nest, and Trapped, are the core of the evil god's power. The evil god Fraud believes that Rudolph is now omniscient. He behaves abnormally docile in front of Rudolph because he believes that he is not an omniscient opponent at all. The true name of the evil god may involve certain authority. Becoming immortal means mastering part of the authority of the world. Ptolemy became the lord of Mars and achieved the immortal war god, which means that all wars or battles in the world can be affected by Ptolemy. What a terrifying ability! As long as there is war, Ptolemy will not die. Ptolemy and war are symbiotic. The evil god can be regarded as a flawed immortal. Rudolph can never be too careful about such an existence. Rudolph dares to hold the fraud card now because the level of this sacrificial ritual vessel is not high. Outside the temple, the evil god Fraud will not project too much divine power. The evil temple is really a troublesome thing, which greatly enhances the deterrence of the evil god priest. Where do they want to meet? Not in the temple, right? "No, Mr. Rudolph, they want to meet you in Gazé Town," Mizu said. "There are not many believers in Gazé Town, and the faith cannot afford a temple. There is only a church there. There are also many believers in Gazé Town. They are afraid of you." For safety reasons, Panner said that it is better for both parties to meet around the church. Jennifer's Gazé Town is one of the 2 towns that survived the wolf tide. It has experienced the complete process of the evil god cult's growth, so Gazé Town built a church early. Rudolph thought about it and said, "Okay, then go to Gazé Town to meet Panner." That night, Rudolph, Cooper, and Mizu came to Gazé Town. Yvonne was cleaning up their newly bought house, so she didn't come. Cooper asked, "Why do the people of the evil god cult want to meet us? Do we have to reach an agreement with them?" "There is no need to reach an agreement. Alchemists still have a little sense of contract. The priests only have their evil gods in their minds and don't care about any agreement." Mizu wanted to say that their alchemists did not have a little sense of contract, but attached great importance to contracts. The spirit of contract is the basis for alchemists to trust each other. Without the constraints of the spirit of contract, alchemists will become misers who cheat people without spitting bones. The existence of the spirit of contract greatly reduces the cost of social operation. The church in Gazé Town is located in the center of the town. At the end of the central main street is the small church, the former Red Church of the Blood Clan. I don't know if the church has released any news. There is no one on the streets of Gazé Town late at night. At the end of the main street, there are several people standing. Rudolph counted the shadows and found that there were 6. The evil god cult is divided into parishes, and each parish has a high priest who is responsible for managing the parish. The parish high priest of Fabreau City is the level 5 Pain priest Panner. Among the 6 people, Panner is the one standing in the front, and the rest are the highest ranking priests of other evil gods here. Of course, in these activities or behaviors of the evil god cult, fraudulent priests generally do not participate. Fraud is too special. Seeing Panner again still makes Rudolph feel uncomfortable. Panner has no eyeballs, only 2 festering eye holes, which are constantly flowing out of yellow or green pus. When he was far away, Rudolph stopped and stopped moving forward. Hearing the footsteps disappear, Panner said, "Could it be that the furnace and the green skeleton are afraid to move forward?" The voice from the end of the main street was very small. Rudolph stretched out his finger, hooked it and shouted, "You are not afraid, come here." After saying that, Rudolph smiled. Cooper turned his head and glanced at Rudolph, not knowing where the joke was. Panner saw that the 3 people had no intention of moving forward and seemed very afraid of the church behind them. He led other priests to walk towards Rudolph and the other 2. Rudolph saw Jessica behind Panner. Unexpectedly, Jessica did not use the metamorphosis pupa, but still looked the same. He thought that Jessica would use the metamorphosis pupa to change her identity in order to escape last time. "Rudolph, what do you think these people want to do?" "I don't know, let's wait and see." A bat flew out of Rudolph's palm, and the bat flew close to the ground from the shadow behind Rudolph to the distance. In the darkness in the distance, the bat split into more than a dozen bats, forming Vanya's head. Soon, Vanya's body also appeared, holding the moon eye obsidian in his hand. This gun is quite suitable for Vanya, and can play the greatest role in Vanya's hands. Behind Cooper, the corpses of Redbeard and others also drilled out from the ground. There were dense sutures on the naked body of the giant. The giant's body was seriously injured in the last battle with the Alchemy Council. Later, Cooper found many corpses and pieced them together for several days before sewing the giant's body with suitable body fragments to keep him fighting. Rudolph is ready to open the 1-second absolute prophecy at any time, either to kill with one blow or to escape immediately. You must be very cautious when facing the priest. The ability of the evil priest itself is secondary. Once the evil god's attention is attracted, it's over. Mizu saw these methods prepared by the immortal duo behind him, and he felt a little scared. After Panur came closer, he said, "Furnace, I hope to sign a peace agreement with you on behalf of the Pantheon of Fabreau City." Rudolph was a little surprised that he was here to surrender. He looked around and saw people around him. The residents of the town should have received some request not to let them move tonight. It seems that Panur knows him very well and deliberately chose this place as the negotiation site. They know that Rudolph rarely attacks ordinary people. The ordinary people and servants around are Panur's hostages. In this way, even if they fight, they can make Rudolph unable to move. So, Priest Panur, how are you going to make up for the mistakes you made during the sacrificial night? How do you think it should be made up? Rudolph said slowly. The leaders and participants of the sacrificial night, Abade and Abel, are dead. Since you want to talk, let's talk. Turn your head and look, of course, look at yourself. Whose life do you think should be used to atone for the sacrificial night? Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 499. Hearing Furnace's aggressive words, the pus in Panur's eye holes became a little thicker and more viscous. This made his eye holes filled with pus, like thick phlegm in the night, and there was still, disgusting bloodshot eyes. Can't we talk about it? The Furnace. Oh, I also accept another plan. If you can turn those servants of gods into ordinary people, then we can also reach a peace agreement. You know this is impossible. Once you become a believer in God and your faith is as firm as a rock, how can you abandon your faith again? The servants of God in Fabreau City did not choose their own beliefs, but were used as sacrifices for sacrifices, and divine power was forcibly poured into them, changing their mental state. Rudolph did not want to argue with these people now, he said. Then there's no need to talk. You go back and prepare for when I will come to demolish your temple and kill you priests. After saying that, Rudolph turned around and prepared to leave with Cooper. Say something harsh, scare them, and keep them in a state of fear, which is quite satisfying. As for when Rudolph will come, it depends on when Rudolph finds the flaw in the temple. The last cheating card said that if you want to avoid the evil god's gaze, you need to get rid of the sacrifices in the temple. Rudolph needs to investigate what the sacrifices are in the temple in Fabreau City and how many there are. He is not in a hurry to take revenge on the evil cult. Just after Rudolph turned around and took 2 or 3 steps, he suddenly heard Pan's shout behind him. Etc. Rudolph and Cooper turned around, wondering what else Pan wanted to say. Panur stretched out his hand and pulled back, roughly pulling Jessica forward. The Furnace. This is Jessica who has dealt with you in Lehman Town. On the night when Obade died, she took action against you again. Now, we will give Jessica to you to let you vent your anger. This is our sincerity, I can always maintain peace with you. Rudolph looked at Jessica and was a little surprised. Did the evil god cult push Jessica out to die? This is so unexpected, but think about it, the priests also have their reasons for doing this. Although Jessica escaped from the battle in the past few days, she is definitely on the blacklist of the Furnace. Compared with being killed by the Furnace one day, it is obviously more valuable to take the initiative to send Jessica to the Furnace to be executed by the Furnace. Cooper turned to Rudolph and signaled Rudolph not to agree. He doesn't like this kind of transaction, it always feels weird. Rudolph whispered, "It's okay. It doesn't matter if I sign the peace agreement. Then I can find any reason to tear up the agreement. My bottom line is so low that I won't even feel the slightest guilt." When Cooper heard Rudolph's shameless statement, he felt that this was not a bad idea. He could earn a level 4 insect hive priest for nothing. Jessica seemed to accept her fate. After being pushed out, she silently walked towards Rudolph. Looking at Jessica walking over, Rudolph felt that she was very pitiful, and she was just abandoned by Panur. The establishment of the parish of Fabreau was originally planned by Jessica. Taking advantage of the food shortage caused by the wolf tide, Jessica spread the faith of the harvest goddess, which led to an increase in the number of believers here for the first time. Rudolph still remembered the disgusting appearance of the harvest goddess statue covered with bugs and mucus. With the spread of faith in the harvest goddess, the power of faith among the priests has grown rapidly, and promotion has become easier. The last sacrificial night was completed by the Church of Pain, which made Pan the only level 5 priest here, and also made Pan the high priest of this diocese. Who would have thought that the evil priests would be so ruthless? No matter how much contribution Jessica had made to the religion of the gods in the past, now she has become the one who has been abandoned. Perhaps it was the ascetic priest who suggested this. The ascetic priest is an emotionless, moving corpse. The clever and cunning Jessica died in this way in the end. Rudolph looked at Jessica's face carefully and saw that Jessica's head was half lowered, expressionless, and her eyes were dull, moving towards Rudolph step by step. Jessica's desire is so strong, why would she willingly give up her life? You don't have to come over here. I have many ways to kill you from a long distance away. Rudolph raised his hand, and a starlight water snake suddenly rushed towards Jessica. Jessica raised her hand to block it instinctively, but she only raised her arm to chest height and failed to stop the starlight water snake in the end. The starlight water snake bit Jessica on the neck, leaving 2 bloody holes, then immediately retreated and got back into Rudolph's sleeve. Black and purple blood emerged from the blood holes. Starting from these 2 blood holes, the veins on Jessica's skin were exposed, and the blood vessels turned black and purple. After Jessica took the final step forward unsteadily, she fell heavily to the ground and died of poisoning. Rudolph couldn't help but shake his head. When a person puts his belief in God above himself, he will become unreasonable. Under Jessica's feet, little stars appeared, which should be Jessica's relics, her insect nest. Pan in the distance was fine. The people behind Pan looked sad and kept drawing the logos of their respective churches on their chests. The white devil priest was drawing the sun god emblem, and the troubled priest was drawing the gear angel. These people were all grieving for Jessica's death, but in the face of the powerful furnace, they had to give in. Fabreau City is too far away from the southern continent, and the evil god's power here is very weak, so he has to find a compromise. They had compromised when they cooperated with the Alchemy Council, and now that the Alchemy Council had compromised on the furnace, they had to compromise as well. Payne said, "Rudolph the Crucible, now, can you give up your revenge on the Fabreau City Temple?" Rudolph nodded, "Okay, you are very sincere." Payne walked towards Rudolph, and Rudolph also walked towards Pan, and both sides completely let down their guard. The distance between them was getting closer and closer, and the midpoint between the 2 sides was exactly Jessica's body. Standing on both sides of Jessica's body, Rudolph said, "I promise that as long as you don't expand the diocese, I will not take action against the Pantheon in Fabreau City. You can only spread faith in the Dordo district, and your priests cannot leave the Dordo district." The faces of several priests behind Pan were angry. They didn't expect the crucible to be so shameless. Jessica was dead, and he still made new demands. It is impossible to judge Pan's emotions from his expression, because he has been in great pain, and his expression is always painful and hideous. "Okay, I promise you. However, Gazet town is the first town we developed, and this town also belongs to the Pantheon." The 2 sides began to bargain, as if they were discussing how much of a pickle belonged to them and how much belonged to the other party. At this moment, a bright light suddenly lit up in Pan's eye sockets. When Rudolph saw this beam of light, he knew that something was wrong. Sure enough, these evil gods must be cheating. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 500. A beam of light shot out of Pan's eye socket, which seemed to be refracted from pus and was very turbid. After sacrificing his eyeballs to the evil god and becoming a level 5 priest of pain, Panur obtained a divine art related to vision, iris vision. Anyone who is seen by iris vision will feel the same pain as Panur. The moment Panur took action, the flame of the word spirit between Rudolph's eyebrows had already lit up. He tilted his head slightly to the side and dodged Panur's attack. The iris vision brushed Rudolph's ear and shot behind Rudolph. Cooper next to him was startled, and Redbeard immediately jumped out from Cooper's head, and a blood-red blade slashed fiercely at Panur on the opposite side. Not only that, the giant's arm with several sutures also swelled at this moment, raised high, and smashed towards Panur. In this small town, it is not convenient for the giant to transform his entire body into a giant, but one arm is enough to fill half of the main street. Compared with Cooper, who suddenly attacked, Rudolph was strangely calm. He just turned his head and looked behind him. If you want to sneak attack Rudolph, you have to use the fastest attack speed. The furnace is famous, and ordinary attacks can't do anything to the furnace. The sneak attack just now was sudden enough and the attack speed was fast enough, but it was still dodged by Rudolph's absolute profit. After Rudolph turned his head, he saw Mizu holding a mirror behind him, and the iris vision beam emitted by Panur shot at the mirror. This mirror turned out to be a convex mirror, which changed Panur's rays from beams to diffuse light. Rudolph and Cooper were both illuminated by the diffuse light. When did Mizu betray Rudolph? This made Rudolph a little puzzled. Mizu had a certain understanding of Rudolph's strength. How could he easily believe in the evil god cult? There was still a flame jumping between Rudolph's eyebrows. The state of absolute prophecy was still there for a second, but he could not feel any threat, and there would be no fatal attack in the next second. How is it possible? Pain couldn't see, but he could sense that his pain power had no target at all. The iris vision failed and no one was noticed. The subsequent pain magic could not be carried out at all. Rudolph and Cooper were illuminated by the light, but there was no effect. Just when Panur was stunned, Redbeard's blade had already chopped Panur's body. The blade sank deeply into Panur's shoulder. At the same time, a deep wound appeared on Cooper's shoulder, breaking his shoulder blade. Hiss! This is a tough enemy. Cooper's cloak collapsed quickly and fell to the ground. Another corpse emerged from the ground. The flesh and blood of the corpse melted quickly and turned into white bones. Two beams of green ghost fire flashed in the eye sockets of the skull. This point of the pain priest is really troublesome. Hitting him is equivalent to hitting yourself. How can ordinary apostles withstand the ability of pain connection? Cooper can use rebirth to avoid pain connection, and other apostles can only resist it. The giant's arm did not hit him, and Cooper hesitated at this moment. He felt that this fight was very strange. He fought for no reason and got the upper hand for no reason. Panur's pain made his eyes widen as wide as possible, and even the pus inside was about to drain out. Panur's desperate voice sounded, "That mirror is fake." Panur's original plan was to use the pain magic to make the two lose their ability to resist, and then use the trapped ritual vessel blessed by the evil god to trap the undead duo together. All this was so perfect, but the mirror turned out to be fake and could not reflect Panur's iris vision. Cooper finally did not let the giant's fist smash several priests, so that the bodies would be unusable. He asked Redbeard to cut Panur in half and completely kill Panur. As for the other priests, 4 shots were fired in the air, and the 4 priests behind Panur fell to the ground one after another. Rudolph put his poisoned bullets in the moon eye obsidian, so that he could replenish bullets and the corpse would be more utilized, so that it would not be blown to pieces by the original bullets of the moon eye obsidian. Until all the priests died, Cooper felt puzzled. Inexplicable negotiations, inexplicable actions, inexplicable victory. Rudolph turned his head and looked at Mizu, who was sweating profusely. He also felt strange, but he did not feel a fatal threat, so he did not make any extra movements from beginning to end. Mizu's arms were shaking constantly, and his fingers holding the mirror turned white because of excessive force. At this moment, Mizu wanted to die. He was like a fool, stepping into a huge trap. Suddenly, a scene appeared in Mizu's mind. That was the scene of the furnace taking out a card. Things started to go bad from the moment he saw the card. From the moment he saw the card, he deviated from the decision made with Speaker Arden to absolutely obey the furnace. Rudolph looked at Mizu's body shaking like a straw in the wind. If these people's conspiracy succeeded, the scattered light reflected by the convex mirror would be difficult to defend against. Rudolph and Cooper would be affected by the magic. Unfortunately, something went wrong. In fact, even if they were affected by the pain magic, it would not matter. Rudolph and Cooper could use death to escape the effect of the magic. "Do you have anything to say, Mizu?" "Mr. Are you, Rudolph? The cards deceived me. They deceived us." Rudolph frowned slightly and said to Cooper first, "Those corpses are all yours. Add some to your collection. Mizu and I have something to say." Cooper didn't know what he needed to avoid, but he didn't think too much and walked towards the bodies of the priests. Rudolph took out the cards, input alchemical power into the fraud card. The cards flew towards Mizu, who quickly threw away the mirror and caught the cards in a panic. As for the mirror, it fell to the ground with a snap and broke into pieces. It was obviously an ordinary mirror that could not be ordinary, and it did not carry any divine power. The cards were activated by the power of the apostles and suspended in the air. Great omniscience! How about the collection I gave to the Son of Destiny? Mizu almost collapsed on the ground. Sure enough, someone teamed up with the furnace to deceive them. All the priests in the temple died, and he completely offended the furnace. Mizu almost cried. "Great omniscience, after communicating with you last time, I was afraid that you would think I was not active enough. This time I took the initiative to design a small game. It's a pity that there are only level 5 priests in Fabro City, otherwise I will definitely give the Son of Destiny a level 6 priest corpse." On the fraud card, the alligator turtle looked like a dog, which made Rudolph a little unacceptable. "You are kind, but it is not necessary for the time being. The growth rate of the Child of Destiny is now relatively reasonable. If it grows faster, the foundation will be unstable. The main reason is that Rudolph does not want to have too much contact with the evil god. He now regards the fraud card as a source of information and a channel to understand the existence of higher levels. This is as dangerous as walking on a tightrope. The fraud card cannot be too active. If it is too active, the Child of Destiny will be exposed." After hearing the reply from the all-knowing, the snapping turtle obviously had a look of loss on his face. Rudolph did not ask whether the fraud would make other evil gods dissatisfied with this. They would definitely be dissatisfied, but that was the internal affairs of the evil god cult. If a disagreement occurs, a group of priests will be sent to zombies. Once these zombies die, the parish of Fabro City will not be saved. From the expression of the snapping turtle, the fraud does not care about the loss of the evil god cult at all. He just wants to participate in the growth of the Child of Destiny and participate in the next major change. Rudolph said, "You did a good job, but don't do it next time. This will increase the risk of the Child of Destiny being exposed. The secret of the Child of Destiny is only known to the two of us, and must not be known to a third person." After saying that, Rudolph and the cards turned to Mizu. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 501. We must not let a third person know about this. Hearing this, Mizu was desperate. Could he be the third person? When the plan failed and Panos magic failed, Mizu knew that his end would be quite tragic. "I'll fight you." Mizu suddenly took out a revolver, and with smooth movements, he raised his gun and shot at the cards. Compared with the furnace, Mizu hated the fraudulent cards even more. Originally, the city council surrendered to the furnace, and he could survive as long as he obeyed the furnace's orders honestly. It was the fraudulent cards that bewitched him. The evil god noticed the furnace and would definitely destroy it personally. But what was the result? The result was that all the evil gods he had coded seemed to surrender to the furnace. Now, with the evil god's conspiracy and fraud, Mizu lost his last chance to survive. How could he not be angry? In the night, gunshots rang out again. Rudolph did not protect the cards because Mizu's gun was facing backwards. Every time I respond to the prayers of believers, the goddess of wisdom will play a little prank. This is the greatest pleasure in my long life. The snapping turtle on the card was a little excited. Every time he succeeded in deception, he always felt happy. Mizu had used guns countless times. He should have been very familiar with guns, but this time he held the gun the wrong way, with the muzzle facing backwards, towards his throat, and pulled the trigger hard, shooting himself. As a result, the alchemical bullet pierced his throat, leaving a big hole in his throat. The flesh was burned by the alchemical bullet, giving off an unpleasant smell of barbecue. Rudolph narrowed his eyes slightly. He had mastered a little bit of the behavior of the evil god's fraud. The first time he saw the fraud card, the card deceived Ivy, and Ivy set fire to lead Rudolph to her side, killing Ivy. The second time he used the fraud card, the card deceived Mizu, and let Mizu and Panner of the evil temple plot to kill Rudolph. In fact, this conspiracy was full of loopholes. The mirror was tampered with by the fraud and replaced from a ritual vessel to an ordinary mirror. The third time he used the fraudulent cards, the cards deceived Mizu again, making Mizu think that he was shooting forward. It was only at this time that Mizu focused his sight close up and saw the muzzle of the gun with green smoke coming out. Mizu wanted to curse, but his throat was broken and he couldn't say anything. Finally, Mizu fell backwards and hit the ground heavily. For the evil god of fraud, all his pranks were small pranks that brought him happiness. But for those who prayed to him, these pranks sometimes cost them their lives. However, praying to the evil god is a shortcut, and the temptation is too great, as if as long as you pray, you can get yourself out of trouble. But what is the price? Mizu died, and the alchemical power he left in the cards was about to dissipate. The snapping turtle on the card said quickly, "Great omniscience, unless you call me, I will no longer take the initiative to participate in the growth of the child of destiny. You know that the gods of the southern continent have reached a consensus, and the pantheon will land in the northern continent in a few months. The gods will also choose the right time to set foot in the northern continent to prevent Carloman 16 from becoming the Night King. In this turbulent change, please let me participate, let me become the helper of the child of destiny, and let me integrate into the long river of destiny." The card fell to the ground, and Rudolph took a long time to pick it up. The evil god fraud is too dangerous, and it will hurt if it touches it, and it will die if it touches it. Rudolph got a new news that the evil god cult is really going to participate in the Elba Civil War. Cooper collected the corpses and came to Rudolph. He looked at Mizu's corpse on the ground and asked, "Rudolph, didn't we reach a settlement with the Alchemy Council? Why did you kill Mizu? Even you slander me." "It was Mizu who was deceived and committed suicide. What you said may be true, but who believes it?" Rudolph sighed. He wanted to be a good person, but unfortunately others didn't believe him. "By the way, Rudolph, I suspect Jessica is fake." "Fake? Her corpse is very strange. It's just a level 3 apostle corpse. I remember Jessica is a level 4 high priest." Under Cooper's control, Jessica walked in front of Rudolph. Rudolph looked around and looked exactly like Jessica. Jessica is a smart person. She actually let her priests use the metamorphosis pupa to transform into her appearance. She probably fled this place of trouble. Indeed, the other apostles can't stay in Fabreau City anymore. After the matter here was over, the police station and the witch hunter team of Gazet Town arrived late. Seeing the dead Chief Mizu, These people didn't know whether to ask or run away immediately. It was Rudolph who spoke to them and saved them. As you can see, Chief Mizu saw that the evil priest was getting more and more rampant day by day, and he was extremely anxious. Unfortunately, he died in the battle with the evil priest and sacrificed in the task of extinguishing the evil priest. You guys deal with the scene and collect Chief Mizu's body. I will write a mission report and tell the speaker about what happened here. Hearing that Ronglu had no intention of silencing them, the police chief and the witch hunter captain nodded and believed Ronglu's words. After the matter here was over, Rudolph came to the Baron's castle. A few days ago, the parliament announced the truth about the bloody night, which made the city of Fabreau full of angry blood servants. Many people temporarily left Fabreau and took shelter in other places. Jennifer also returned to Gazet town, waiting for the restoration of order in Fabreau city. In Jennifer's bedroom, the window was open, and she was looking at Gazet town not far away. The notice of the evil god cult was also sent to the Baron Castle, requiring the people of the Baron Castle not to go out tonight. I don't know what the evil god cult is going to do. The people sent by the evil god cult to convey the request are all level 3 priests. Jennifer looked at Gazet town with a telescope, saw the priests waiting on the main street, and also saw 3 people walking at the end of the street. The moment she saw Rudolph, Jennifer felt very sad. This man had been back to Fabreau city for so long, and he didn't come to see her. Then, a short battle broke out on the main street. After the battle, all the evil god priests died, and even Mizu, the director of the trial department, committed suicide for unknown reasons. After the chaos there ended, Jennifer suddenly heard a sound explosion. She turned around in a hurry and saw Rudolph appeared behind her. These high-level apostle abilities made a level 2 knight like Jennifer have no reaction. Why did you come to see me just now? The most beautiful person, save it for the last. Half an hour later, Jennifer was panting on Rudolph's chest on the big bed. Rudolph propped up Jennifer's shoulders. Are you tired now? You are a level 5 wizard now, and I am just a level 2 knight. How can I be your opponent? Rudolph turned over and attacked and defended in different positions. Then I will do it, my lady Baron. At noon the next day, Jennifer was holding the level 4 werewolf magic weapon given to her by Rudolph in her hand, and she was very unwilling. She had to find a way to continue to advance, otherwise she could only avoid danger in the future, and she would also be bullied by Rudolph, which made Jennifer very sad.